this off by saying suck it. I can't remember who it was. Not to you guys, not the people that usually watch it, but geez. This one guy yesterday, I don't want to show his name, but the guy that was responding to me still looks like better going to 41.5 than sitting here for a move up, and the long-term trends look good. I don't see why we just don't let the short-term price drop. Seems like it would be great to get most weak hands out. What do? We wait here forever. I will say this was a easy to see buy spot, but you didn't know if it was going to go up or not. I do want to say, in a sense, that when you do have things like, so let's look at this for an example. Let's go back and let's look at this. This to me is also a buy spot. I mean, it really wasn't that bad if you look at it. This is where you buy it. You don't buy it down here. It's dropping way too hard. But when we come back up and we switch above, this is where you buy it. You can take a small position here. Um, and then it just turned around, so it went on the bottom side. But we had all this bearishness and all this bad price action, so it made sense a little bit for it to go back down. The point is even though it was being a good buy spot doesn't mean something goes up, right? A good buy spot means that you can limit losses if it drops. Like, to me, that is always what a good buy spot is, because you want a spot that is going to be as on average profitable as possible. And in general, when you get in a place that sits around here before moving down, that's almost always going to be the most profitable way to trade, because even if you're only right 60% of the time, if you're limiting your losses heavily, you're still making so much. You don't need like this guy's talking about 98% win rate. You don't need 98% win rate to make good money. It doesn't matter. And sometimes it almost begets the question, how often are you getting out? I personally think it's better to take a little bit of losses and wait for price action on the bottom side of what looks good, as opposed to, oh, it might turn around, let's just sell it. Because to me, if you have a 98% win rate, what you're doing isn't it's just like quick trading. It's probably like, to me, when someone's a 90% win rate, first of all, just to get to 98%, you'd have to at least trade 50 times, right? And you have to be right at least 49 out of 50. Otherwise, you can't get to 98%, correct? But regardless, it doesn't, I don't know, it just doesn't seem worth it. It doesn't seem worth it. Now, maybe it's just like true, but when I hear 98%, I think like there's a lot of trades, a lot of trades. The second it looks like it's going to go bad when the person gets out. But it is like, I guess, picking a fairly decent spot sometimes, or maybe not a decent spot, but something on an uptrend that might not matter on a short. Like, you could buy a short-term uptrend and sell it before it gets crushed on a longer term, because it just looks bad in the longer term. Anyway, let's get rid of this. I don't care what they're saying on the side. But yeah, for that one guy, suck it. Yeah, it still looks better going to, and I said this, last night. Right. Let's look at here. Said this last night. So suck it. Like, suck it. And to be honest, it would have looked even better. And everything's not out of the woodworks yet. This is what it needed to do. This is exactly what I thought. I mean, it had no other choice. It had no other choice. We can't be, well, technically we'll see what happens, because we're not technically out here and we're still waiting for the dollar to open. Everything I've said on those previous ones still holds. I think we're still going up because everything I said before, and I still believe what I said in the chat is that it makes sense. Just shake out the weak hands and let's push back up. No one on a longer term is looking at, I'll say this again, no one on a long term cares about the price of Bitcoin until we fall, like anybody with money. That's how these averages, they're always right. So they have to be right in this sense. I just going to assume, because they're almost always right. When they look this good, they're almost always right at detecting something. And this says nobody cares about Bitcoin until it comes back under 37K. Nobody with any money that cares, that's of any importance, cares about Bitcoin until it comes under here. So we could come back, but it's very dangerous on these really short terms to, maybe get blindsided by what's going on. I mean, to me, I could kind of see it, or at least sketchiness. Why? Just because we were diverging from, following the averages so well. It doesn't make sense with what we're doing, right? Let's check the 2 hours, right? Boom. I mean, there's some pretty nice stuff where it is, but let's focus on here. The 4 hours here, we see the 2 hours there. We can see the 4 hours here. Really nice stuff. And then all of a sudden, I mean, the 1 hour, because the 1 hour is the only one relevantly close to it right now, right? The 2 hours like here and the 4 hours like there or something. So those aren't next to the price. But look at this. Boom, we push up, but then we come back under. So it's like still respecting it, but there's obviously weird things going on. Way overselling, We just shoot back up. And these are always the weirdest things. This is oversold, not surprised. This is overbought, not surprised. Like when we just go through, it doesn't mean it's always oversold or overbought, but when we just go through, let me do this. But when we just go through these things, to me, I usually see it as oversold or overbought, and so that's why I'm not surprised that we're just ranging in all these areas. So the real question here, in my opinion, still comes down to where the dollar opens. Now, if I'm going to use what tools are at my disposal, everything else is closed that I find relevant besides Bitcoin. So looking at Bitcoin itself, this thing could still fail. Let me get rid of these. This just hurts my eyes. Whoops. These just hurt my eyes. Anyway, so we still could fail. The whole goal when we come into a time frame like this, especially when there's no other market open, is we want as much bullishness to be possibly seen so that the dollar can open up in a pretty negative spot, as negative as possible anyway. So we want bullishness from any indicator that we can find pushing into this open right here. And that's why we lined this where it is. Technically it's 1 hour after, but whatever it's supposed to be. It's like it's on the 7 o'clock. So it's like whatever, it's 7:45, I think. So yeah, so we could get locked into here and we could start trending up. Hopefully we don't get bought like all the way up here and then we start coming down in this sense. I really preferably want to see a trend come up. And then the last thing I'll say here is on the dollar, just to go over it again. If you guys have seen this on the other one, don't worry about it. You don't have to look at this. You can just kind of end the video there. Um, I need to get my Shure mic. I'm gonna get a Shure mic, and I think one of those Scarlett audio things and like a boom arm in like 20 minutes or something. So I've always wanted to put it off. It always sounds so much better, but quality wise, but I've never really wanted to set all of it up. I don't know why with the XLR. Anyway, I think it's like $700. Kind of a lot, to be honest, just for a little increase in quality, but or it'll probably be a big increase. But anyway, what am I looking at? Oh yeah, so the dollar. So we talked about this. Let's talk about bullish spots for the dollar. I'm not going to go over all the minutia and all the other things. You can check the other videos for that. I think I mentioned almost every video. So bullish for the dollar, bearish for equities, bullish for the dollar, bearish for equities, at least on the open, really. And this is just an expectation that we'd push up here, and this would be the real bullishness for the dollar, bearishness for equities. But this is essentially like the second best shot or the third best shot. And then the best thing for the dollar is really here with the objective of here. So we really have three areas, right? This is 1, 2, and 3, right? So well, technically we have more than that. Let me do this. We do have more than that. We could do 1, 2, 3, and I guess technically this is area 4, right? So let's actually be accurate with that. So we have area 1, 2, 3, 4, right? We essentially want to start at the bottom of each area, right? So this is the top of 4. So this is bearish for the dollar, bullish for indices. This is the top of 3. So this is bearish for the dollar, bullish for indices. This is the top of 2. This is bearish for the dollar, bullish for indices. And likewise, if for some reason we started at 105, I think we just drop all the way back down to test, which I don't see that happening. Just as much as I don't see the top, just as much as I don't see the top of 1 happening or starting as an open, I don't see the bottom of 4. Like you don't just, right? You don't just start 2% down on a current, like currency will just move 2% on an open. That doesn't make any sense. Now, if it's going to drop there, sure, but like immediately, it doesn't happen. It literally doesn't happen. I don't think that's ever happened. I'd have to check, but I'm almost positive it's never happened. Not that much. Anyway, so the top of these, so the tops are bad. The bottoms are good. So likewise, this is bullish because it gives us some space, at least to come back up to here. This puts us above support, which at least gives us some space to come back here. But simultaneously, right, gives us some support. And this is just obviously bullish as hell and everything's dropping. But this isn't going to happen, just in my opinion, just as much as this not going to happen. That's not going to happen. What's most likely going to happen where it is we start at the bottom of 3 or the top of 3. So most likely we're just going to stay. I guess we can keep that. So most likely we're just going to stay with within this range of this 3 zone, I guess, or whatever, this 3 area. And so it's pretty much here or here. I guess technically we could just start right next to where it is. Probably just going to be what it is, more or less. Doesn't exactly deviate a whole lot now that I really look at it. Is that possible? Maybe on the week it does just shift over. Am I crazy? Maybe it does just shift over every week. So if we just assume that and it doesn't really have any, if this, I wonder. So essentially, my thought process here is like if this pretty much has to switch over where it is, I think this is inherently more bullish than it is bearish on the shorter term. But we'll have to see what happens with stuff. On the medium long term, everything's still bullish for everything. So it's kind of hard to see it turn around. But so essentially, if we break this 3 zone up, this is kind of the proper way to look at it. So if we just assume that we're starting right here, we're essentially just looking at this starting right over here. And then from that point, we have more room up than we do down, essentially. If we do push up, we're going to crash down hard. So this pushing up like this to me means that most likely we're just going to reject here. And then this is like where you start longing stuff or looking to even add on to stuff. Or if you're looking for more confirmation, this would be the area to start taking positions at. And most likely we'll just trend all the way back down. I imagine we'll start outside for the next week, and then we'll just proceed to drop down further. Um, this does somewhat pose a problem that this is here. Let's say if we start here, say if we do this, let's say if we start here, say we push up and then push back down. This could be an issue if we do start higher here. The worst would be if we start somewhere here next week, or I guess technically if we start right next to it. If we don't have a choice, we have to start right next to it. What's the point of thinking about it? I'm thinking about it in the wrong way. Some things, because you have pre-market and other stuff, they can just open, but the dollar index doesn't seem to be holding that. When I look at it a little bit, just really taking that all in. So, we push up, we push down. It's kind of hard to say because it always had, I think it looks bad no matter what then. So the thing that would look good, the way that this looks good is this up and then down. But if we can't actually start higher than where we just ended, like the VIX or equities and stuff, then we're pretty much moving over right here. And even if we move up, it's at that point immediately impossible to hold any short of like trend that would go from here to here. If this is assuming if we start low, what it would have to do is this, and then end here and start over here, and then we could hold that trend. But if we have just like straight bearishness into the end of next week, I don't think it has any choice but to look bad. So we got the dollar pushing up now, which is really nice to see. I'm sorry, Bitcoin, which is really nice to see. This was pretty straightforward as always. Like I said before, well, it wasn't completely straightforward, right? The big issue here is excuse me, the big issue here is the idea. I mean, I still think it's a buy because it seems pretty obvious. Like I said before, if you believe in it being bullish, we can drop here, but we can only drop here reasonably here. Because if this is where we're playing for, and like I say, this is important to remember. When are these things coming out? How are we moving into them opening? And when you look at it this way, it makes sense. There is manipulation, but it's more of just setting up the stage as opposed to manipulation. When you understand setting up of the stage, it makes more sense to kind of know what to expect and what can happen because so many things can only happen at certain times. If we could drop down here if we did this here and come back up into this trend and we could be doing something here. You see? This right here is the only way we really could have come back in is hitting the target and pushing up. This is the only way we can realistically come back in for a bullish trend up into the dollar end. And if that's the goal, which is what it seems, you can't drop any further because it's not going to have enough time because we can trend up, but now we're under this and that doesn't look good, right? So when we look at it in this way and we think about it this way, it just makes more sense. Instead of saying this looks bad, let's think of what possibilities or what scenarios can logically play out, right? Not anything can happen, but at certain points of time there are a myriad of things that can happen, right? And that is to me that is what defines my not all of it, but that to me I think that's what gives me a little more edge on my analysis and my strategy with these things is that we're not just looking at we're not just looking at like what's going on here. We're looking at like the dollar opening, and that adds a lot more to this Sunday, right? And then that creates the idea, how do we want to come into this? That's crazy. I just took a sip of this and my stomach's already like, ugh. Ooh, man, I've lost like 15 pounds in a month. It's crazy. Not good. Anyway, we'll see what kind of happens with this stuff. I don't think everything's super bullish personally. I think this is just the only thing that could have happened to be reasonable. We still have to see where the dollar opens. And I guess I said something wrong a second ago. It's still bullish on the medium and short term. It's to me, none of that changes. Like none of that changes and none of that changed. But when we look at this, that is pretty ugly, right? That is pretty ugly. So the day isn't the best. If we push up out of here, it is fine as always, right? Even if this looks ugly, if we can get up above here and start a new day above 43K tomorrow, or like Monday, or actually, I guess tonight, that would look really good too. I think that's a lot less likely, but maybe that is possible because the weak hands got out. We hit the target, we got the weak hands out, and now it's time to push up. So it's definitely possible that this is what I would actually be looking for based off the day time frame next, is a start above 43K. So I think we could actually push up all the way to 43K looking at the day time frame. I don't want to get too focused on the 1 hour. I don't think it's that important. Um, but this also kind of shows you what I'm talking about. If we just came down, I can't draw on it, but if we just came down yesterday on yesterday's candle, we wouldn't have a lower low. Now we have a lower low here, which still looked good to push up because that was the only thing it could have reasonably done to hold the bullishness, right? Because just because it looks there's certain things things start looking really bad if we drop further there, but unless we did it like the other day, which we can see because we were then creating an uptrend. So this is still on a bad trend, but like I said, I don't think it matters, and I think that's what they want to shoot for. So what can I say that's of use? Want to see the dollar? Preferably, I'd like to see the day start above here, but we'll see. I'd like to see it come back above the 4 hours. I don't really know where you buy in at this point because, like I was saying before, 41.5, we were talking about. I mean, even before we were talking about, we said 41.3, I think. We were talking about this line the whole time. It just made sense. There's so much open space here. Let's just attack this. Like, always attack this places where there's open space. Like there's always something to gain in these areas, right? If we just kind of like highlight it. Right? I like this because it kind of makes a little bit more sense in a sense, right? But these are like the easy attackable areas. So when we are here, no matter how we're coming up into it, this whole zone here has all of this is fairly open space. There's a little bit here, a little bit there, but there's a lot to gain. So it just makes a lot of sense. Anyway, I hope that helps some people. Like I said, I try to put these out not just to say what's going to happen or what I think is going to happen, but to give an idea of how I think about these things, how I look at these things, and why. I don't know if it's correlation causation. I don't want to say like why I'm right, but I want to be able to share the tools that I use because a lot of it is analysis, and it's like a more of a meta analysis than just looking at something on one term. And I'm trying to get the full idea, the full perspective, and that is always important. What is on the longest time frame? What is on all the way down to where we are? What's the dollar possibly going to do? When is that going to open? Are we on a weekend? The VIX, when's that going to open? What are we doing? Are we on a weekend? The indices, what are they doing? Apple, because that's such a big player. And I think Apple's not as necessary, but when the indices are further away, they are. I don't want to get into that. It's not as important. But anyway, I hope this was of use to you all. I'm not muted, which is great. I would be pissed. And I should have a Shure mic soon. That's great. I'm gonna get that Shure like broadcast dynamic one, like the Scarlet Focus Solo, and then I need to get a boom arm. So we're gonna have a crisp voice. I think my voice sounds really nice, but I'm pretty sure it sounds like when I hear it through the USB, it's just horrible. It could be because my tone is so deep, but it is what it is. Anyway, take care, y'all. And I think what we'll do is we'll just leave it like this. I think this is the most representative of how I still really feel about this and why it doesn't really make sense to where it is right now to try to short it. Because what if you're like here, here, here? Anyway, take care, guys. Have a good weekend, and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.